This is VOA News. Via remote, I'm Marissa Melton. A court in military-ruled Myanmar sentenced ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi and Australian economist Sean Turnell to 3 years in prison on Thursday for violating the country's Official Secrets Act. Both were detained in February 2021 when the military seized power. Phil Mercer reports from Sydney.
Aung San Suu Kyi and Sean Turnell, who pleaded not guilty to the charge of violating the Official Secrets Act, faced a maximum sentence of 14 years in prison. Their trial was held in secret. Aung San Suu Kyi has now been sentenced to more than 20 years in jail on a range of charges that her supporters claim are designed to keep her out of power. State television in Myanmar has said Turnell, an Australian academic, had access to secret state financial information and had tried to flee the country. Suu Kyi, Turnell and several others who are part of her economic advisory team are among thousands detained since the military overthrew an elected government in Myanmar last February. Phil Mercer for VOA News, Sydney.
The United Nations Secretary General strongly condemned Russia's plan to formally annex 4 areas of Ukraine in a ceremony on Friday, saying it's illegal and must not be accepted. Antonio Guterres told reporters Thursday the UN Charter is clear. He said any annexation of a state's territory by another state resulting from the threat or use of force is a violation of the principles of the UN Charter and international law. He said any decision to proceed with the annexation of the 4 Ukrainian territories, Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Zaporizhia, would have no legal value and deserves to be condemned. VOA News. U.S. forecasters say the powerful storm Ian is producing catastrophic flooding as it moves across the southeastern U.S. state of Florida. Florida's governor said more than 2 million people are without power from the storm, which came ashore Wednesday as a hurricane. In a news conference Thursday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis told reporters the amount of water rising in Florida, even in areas where the storm has passed, is basically, in his words, a 500-year flooding event. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said it expects the storm to weaken throughout Thursday, but that it could be near hurricane strength again as it approaches the U.S. state of South Carolina on Friday. The wife of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas was interviewed by the House committee investigating the Capitol riot. The AP's Ed Donahue has the story.
Thank you for being here.
Ginny Thomas answered some of the questions. Committee Chair Benny Thompson says she stood by the false claim the 2020 election was stolen. A source familiar with the investigation tells the AP Thomas did not provide any evidence or reasoning to back up her claim. Her attorney says Mrs. Thomas had significant concerns about fraud and irregularities, and beyond that, played no role in any events after the 2020 election results. Ginny Thomas has repeatedly maintained her political activities pose no conflict of interest with the work of her husband. Benny Thompson says they're glad she came, and it's a work in progress. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Ukraine's state energy operator says the nuclear power plant at Zaporizhia, under siege for weeks, temporarily sustained a complete disconnection from the country's national power grid Thursday. The company blamed Russia, saying, quote, the actions of the invaders led to the disconnection. It said the power outage was the first in the history of the plant. Russia and Ukraine have blamed each other for attacks near the Zaporizhia facility. Meanwhile, world leaders have expressed fear that the fighting could result in a catastrophic nuclear disaster. U.S. President Joe Biden, his administration pledging to help Pacific Island leaders stave off what it calls China's economic coercion, promised them on Thursday to work harder with allies and partners to address their needs. Leaders and representatives from 14 Pacific Island states were taking part in a 2-day summit that ended on Thursday. India's top court Thursday upheld the right of a woman to an abortion for up to 24 weeks into pregnancy regardless of marital status, a decision widely hailed by women's rights activists. And once again, our top story this hour, a court in military-ruled Myanmar has sentenced ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi and an Australian economist Sean Turnell to 3 years in prison for violating the country's Official Secrets Act. Marissa Melton, VOA News.